Concept 2, solving quadratic equations by factoring. Alright, so we're going to start with our quadratic equation, and sometimes we'll get them in standard form, alright, but sometimes we'll have them not in standard form, and we'll have to alter them so that we get them in standard form, okay, because we want to have that trinomial all on one side equal to 0 so that we can start our factoring, okay. So if we've got that, we've got our standard form quadratic, we are going to start by factoring it. We're looking for those binomial factors. So I don't have a coefficient on x, so I'm looking for the two factors of c, right? Factors of my third term that would add up to be my middle term. Okay. So right off the bat, I can just kind of see that it's probably going to be 6 and 2. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 plus 2 is 8. So I'm going to go x plus 6 and x plus 2. Okay, and remember that's still equal to 0. And if you're not sure about your factoring, you can FOIL it back out to make sure you've got it right, but I'm feeling pretty confident. So we're going to go right into finding those zeros. And again, when we have no number, no coefficient on our x in our factors, it's pretty easy because it's just going to be the opposite of whatever that value is. If x plus 6 is equal to 0, well, x has to be negative 6. If x plus 2 is equal to 0, x has to be negative 2. So for this problem, I would have negative 6 or negative 2 as my answers, as my zeros, and I can plug those back in to make sure that that works. So if I put negative 6 squared plus 8 times negative 6 plus 12, negative 6 times negative 6 would be 36. 8 times negative 6 is going to be a negative 48. And then plus another 12. Well, if I add 12 to 36, I get 48. So this does equal 0, and that is a solution. Okay? So you can always check your answers just by plugging your values back into your original equation. Right? Now, if we go on to one that's a little more complex, right? It's a little more complex because we've got that coefficient on our first term. So that leading coefficient just makes the factoring more difficult, right? We've got to go back to factoring by grouping. So to do that, I'm going to start with 2 times negative 24. So I get my negative 48. And remember, to find my two groups, I'm looking for the factors of negative 48 who combine, right, add up to negative 13. So I can see, I've got 2 and 24. Okay, but that's going to be too big. That's not going to be 13. And let's see, I could go down to 4 and something. But since this is odd, I'm going to look for an odd factor. So if I have 3 divided by 48, that should be 16. And if I had a negative 16, then those would combine, those would add up to negative 13. So that's the 2 I'm looking for. So I've got my 2x squared, and then I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with positive 3x, and then have a negative 16x minus 24, and have those be my two groups. All right. And remember, we're not multiplying those; those are just added together, and that still equals our trinomial. Okay. So factoring out the greatest common factor, well, here I can just factor out x. I've still got 2x plus 3. And then here, I'm going to be factoring out a negative, let's see, 8. Right, negative 8. And that's going to leave me with 2x plus 3, since I factored out that negative. Okay, and then combine them. I've got x minus 8 times 2x plus 3. Okay, and keep in mind that's all equal to 0. Okay, so this is a kind of review of what we did last chapter, factoring out these trinomials. But now with that, I can see that, okay, since I don't have a value here, I don't have a number, this x, if this binomial was going to equal 0, this x has to be positive 8. So x could equal positive 8, or x could equal, for this one, 2x plus 3 has to equal 0. And a lot of the times when you, I would say every time, when you have a coefficient on x, you want to write it out as an equation. Okay, you want to write it out as, okay, 2x plus 3 equals 0. Don't try and do those in your head. Just write them out. Okay, so then you have 2x equals negative 3, divide by 2, divide by 2, and we have x is equal to negative 3/2, or negative 1 and 1/2. Okay, and those are my zeros for this quadratic equation. Okay, if I graphed out this parabola, these are the 2 points where it would cross the x-axis.